Welcome, all you Shaman King fans, to What's the Difference, where I compare the various different adaptations to a given media and how they all compare and contrast to each other. In this case, we have the manga of Shaman King, the 2001 anime, and the 2021 anime. Previously, we saw the introduction of Chocolove and got to understand how the shaman fight would actually take place, with the only difference being the original 2001 anime that has Chocolove just kind of introduce himself to the group in order to find the Patch Village, an endeavor that is given a little bit more time to linger in the original anime as a kind of training for our heroes, I guess you could say, before they actually get to the shaman fight proper. We also got to see how our heroes communed with the Great Spirit, with the manga and newer anime adaptation making it seem as more like a spiritual quest through ethereal existence and the memory of all worlds, whereas the original anime kind of made it more of an ominous, will you protect your friends, will you go the distance, kind of shonen hero's quest kind of situation. So each version has its ups and downs. Let's see what happens in the next adaptations. We have the manga, volume 13, chapter 111, The Return of Faust. We're at the back end of episode 37 of the 2001 anime episode, Joke King. And for the 2021 anime adaptation, we're at episode 19, Black Jaguar. Let's jump in and talk about it, shall we? Now, the manga and newer anime actually open up with Manta having encountered Faust down by the riverside. Of course, Manta is a little bit put off, especially because of his last encounter with Faust. Manta is intrigued by the melancholy of the sound, but, fear takes over, and Manta accidentally trips, and Faust immediately sees him. Poor Manta. Interestingly enough, the manga actually has the song that he's singing in the little chapter cover. Something a little nice that you could sing along to with. And whereas the original anime, I think, completely cuts this out, maybe they did it in a character song back during the day. The anime used to have character songs that they would use to promote certain things. Not too many anime do that nowadays. Every character would have their own song to sing. It was nice. It helped you really kind of bond with a series. But it was nice that the newer anime at least had a little bit of the actor singing it almost fully. It was actually pretty nice. And then you have a little bit of Chocolove trying to get everyone to remember his name. And I gotta say, the newer anime just really goes weirdly off model in a lot of places. The older anime wasn't the best, but it could stay on model a lot more often than the newer adaptation does. And Horo isn't having any of Chocolove's BS, mostly because this is their first introduction with each other. They're gonna be great friends. And trying to discuss things with Anna about how she got here. Meanwhile, in the older anime, Anna, Tamao, and Manta have only just recently arrived in America. At the airport, Manta has gone missing, and then each adaptation, you see Manta with Faust, and it's funny because Manta ends up in Faust's lap one way or another. Although I do find it funny in the original anime where Manta is full on just being held by Faust in his hand. It is definitely a To Catch a Predator moment, but at the same time it's just like, he is a doctor. Faust is all cheerful. I also love the fact that in one adaptation, the manga and newer anime, Anna's just taken aback by Faust, whereas in the original anime, she's completely control of the situation, does poker face for days, so everybody's a little freaked out by having Faust here. And Faust is basically trying to play nice with everyone. I love how even Anna is kind of suspicious if he's come here for revenge, even though he won the fight against Yo, but Yo did destroy Eliza's legs, so one of the few times things really got heated with Yo. That's not what Faust is here for. Faust laments his situation, and in both versions he talks about the fact that he's alone. Whereas in the original anime, he's just having trouble finding the Patch Village. He's at a bit of a loss, so he's trying to get help from Anna. Whereas in the manga and newer anime, it's that he needs a team, but unfortunately, he doesn't know anyone else out there. So it's just like, who can he even team up with? So he wants to join Yo's team. And of course, Manta's kind of against it, but especially Ryu, as he wants Lyserg on the team, and only Lyserg. Tells Faust to shoot. Get. And it's a bit of a sympathetic situation. Although they do cut out the joke that Faust in the manga was leaving with Manta. But I guess they want to appeal to the sympathy you might feel for Faust. And Yo's chill out about the whole situation again. I love Chocolove's reaction to the fact that Faust had cut Manta open previously. It's like, that's the exact reaction you should have. Of course, they cut out the fact that Ryu is smoking in the manga. They cut out a lot of Ryu smoking in the manga. Whereas in the newer anime, and even the older anime, his smoking habit is non-existent. Of course, because they don't want to promote that, but I mean, death and all the blood and harm that happens in the anime adaptations, that's perfectly fine. But even then, they do cut back on a lot of the gore of the original manga is non-existent in both anime adaptations. But Manta, despite everything that has happened to him, actually has a little bit of pity for Faust, as it's just like he was torn away from his love, and that's the reasoning behind his obsession. And in both versions, Anna makes the decision that she'll have Faust on their team. And it's hard to say which version I like more. The manga and newer anime where after Faust left, she makes the decision to have him on their team, or the fact that because he's right there in front of them, she immediately makes the decision that he will fight for Yo. It's actually pretty interesting. And I love the explanation that Anna gives in the manga and newer anime, where it's just like, I don't know dick about Lyserg, but Faust is here, and Faust is strong. I've seen what he could do firsthand. His determination, his power, all that good stuff. And in all versions, she plans on beefing up his power. And then we cut over to episode 38 of the original anime, The Legend of Seminoa, where I guess it's the next day after Anna has made her decision, questioning if she'll be scouted by a Hollywood agent. And when Manta goes into the question of Faust being their ally, who I love that Anna's just having him do random workouts and stuff. She gives the same explanation that he's strong, and she does acknowledge what Manta had been through. But it's interesting that it's Anna who kind of vouches for Faust in the way that Manta originally did. So it's kind of a mix of certain things, but they both kind of see the potential in Faust. And they comment about the fact that Faust doesn't really have a grudge against Yo, and talks about the fact that she wants Faust to help Yo for the most part. And Manta, of course, feels sorry. Again, he talks about the fact that he's been separated from his love and all that good stuff. But I love that Manta thinks that it's Anna doing it out of the goodness of her heart. But it's ultimately a negotiation. In both versions, it's just like the fact that he's talented, and she wants that loyalty. And she wants to use it for her hot spring resort, just to have a good doctor in her employ. She's thinking like a hostess already, and I love it. I love hostess Anna. She's on some next level shit. Friggin' hashtag girl boss. Like, seriously. And of course, Manta is taken back by that. And I love that Anna is immediately ready to start Yo's training. Whereas in the original anime, you happen to have her cross paths with Tao Jun. Whereas in the manga and newer anime, Tao Jun actually comes to the shaman fight with their family. All of them. But I guess the animation staff for the original anime just wanted to have more of June and Pyron. So it's just a nice way of kind of, having more of her and her voice actor involved in stuff. And this is also kind of a great scene where Anna actually does the hitchhiking that Ryu does, though just not with the big thumb. And of course, she manages to summon none other than Billy. It's a fabulous moment, and it's Anna commanding every scene that she's in, and the original anime really drives it home a lot. It's just like Anna is a commanding presence no matter what situation she's in. And whereas this episode is the introduction of Lily Rara for the original anime, and our heroes go on their little vision quests with the addition of Chocolove, whereas it was originally just Ryu, Yo, Horo, and Ren. Chocolove is included in the vision of trying to locate the Patch Tribe location. And as our heroes get the information and head out, then we cut to the arrival of Anna and her team as to whereas they think, Ren, Yo, and the others should be, only for them to find out that they're in Loktafe, not Yontafe. They're in the wrong city. So a little bit of a gag to kind of keep things running for all of them. Meanwhile, in the manga and newer anime, Ryu is determined to find Lyserg to get them on his team. And then back at episode 37, you have this little kind of creepy moment because there's so many too many instances of grown blonde men comforting little boys. It's weird. And it's basically Marco making the sales pitch of being able to defeat Hao to Lyserg. And Marco is trying to bring Lyserg over to their side. It seems like Lyserg told Marco the story of what happened. Now, something that doesn't happen in either anime adaptations that happens in the manga. Whereas the original anime makes it seem like, right after Lyserg had decided to go with the X-Laws, Marco is looking to further induct Lyserg into the X-Laws. Whereas with the newer anime, Lyserg went through that trip with the Great Spirit. He was weakened. He ended up in a highly emotional state. It's kind of given the implication that he went to Marco, sought him out, to have some kind of comfort, to kind of grasp how they got so strong, and then Marco makes the pitch. But the way it's set up in the manga, it kind of gives a little bit of an implication, just kind of, that the X-Laws had come to Lyserg, that they had sought him out. Almost like they found him in his weakened state and almost kind of tried to prey upon that in order to induct him into their ranks. So it's a little bit of a conflicting situation. I've made it very clear how I feel about Lyserg in the original anime. I don't much care for that betrayal, but at the same time, they drive home the idea that Lyserg is eventually going to walk away from Yo. The newer anime makes it kind of seem like it almost comes out of nowhere. It was only like after Yo had tried to help a minion of Hao, Lyserg just completely turns on Yo. Just completely looks down on Yo after that point. But what the manga really gets across is the fact that Lyserg is in a very vulnerable state. He was already kind of going down that route, starting to question how he felt about Yo because of the fact that Yo is kind of a little soft on a lot of people and things. Yeah, he's strong, but he's not really a ruthless person. And the manga kind of feels like it's trying to drive home that Marco is trying to prey upon that doubt that Lyserg has, and that's what eventually turns him. He had that doubt, but Marco completely turns him after his, experience with the Great Spirit and all that good stuff. So, it's a lot of different interpretations, I feel. And I guess I would go with the original adaptation of the manga just because you really see it coming. It's really a defined place for Lyserg to end up in. And there's no feeling like you don't fully know where things are progressing with Lyserg's character. Meanwhile, something that doesn't happen, as far as I know, in the original anime, is Anna actually turning over Hao's book to Silva for some reason. And it starts to kind of imply that maybe Silva has his own agenda. Maybe he's cooperating with the Asakuras. And you see that Anna has managed to, gain knowledge from the book as well as house familiars, which honestly look a little bit more spooky in the newer anime rather than the manga. Like, there's just a freakier nature to them. And it's a bit more commentary on the strength of Anna and how capable she is, with Silva being completely taken off guard by the fact that she was able to dominate the minions of Hao in this way and subjugate them. I also love this depiction of the three great powers, Hao, Sati, and the Gandhara and the X-Laws, these god-class people. But, it almost implies that Anna is the other great power, as she describes herself as a goddess of victory who will help to lead Yo to the top. And then you find out that the tournament is actually taking place on this island called Tokyo, rather than in Tokyo itself. That's why it's the shaman fight in Tokyo. Whereas with the original anime, it all just takes place out in like the Nevada desert or something. You have all these people coming to the island as spectators and cheerleaders and all that good stuff. This island that's built on old factories and all that good stuff. I do really enjoy the tournament grounds in the manga and newer anime. It's pretty cool. And then Ren even comments on the fact that it's just like, they told us we'd never see our family again, and then Ren looks out the window and sees his family coming to cheer him on. And you see June and all of them coming. He's actually pretty funny and great. I love it. One joke they do cut out of the newer anime is the fact that the helicopters they're all traveling on are actually just like the Patch Jumbo Jet. They're made out of mana. And so Calum, who's flying the copter, it's like an Apache copter, I wonder. He has to concentrate to maintain his mana. And something they don't comment on in the newer anime is that, 2 months after they arrived in the Patch Village, that's when this fight actually starts to take place. You don't really need that in terms of the older anime because they spent enough time traveling through America. And there's no telling who they'll fight because it's just team names, not individuals. Meanwhile, Ryu has spent all this time trying to find Lyserg to no avail. And Faust comments, well, unless he's already dead, we'll probably end up fighting him in the tournament if he's still around. And that just brings Ryu further into despair. And we don't get the comment from Manta on the fact that Anna forced Yo's team to be called Team Funbari Hot Springs, because once again, hashtag girlboss, she trying to make that future money. But whereas Manta originally noticed it in the manga, it's primarily Anna who points it out in the newer anime, where she notes the fact that, in the second match, or no, it's the third match, Ren and Yo will probably have to clash heads, but Yo isn't too worried. Although in the manga, you see Yo with some bruises and some bandages on to show that he's undergone a lot of training, and they cut that out of the newer anime. And that's when you get to the day of the tournament. Meanwhile, in the older anime, after Chocolove had got beat up after trying to help out two guys who were fighting, he has a flashback. We have Chocolove kind of get accustomed to the group for the most part. And Yo actually asks Chocolove why he's participating in the shaman fight. And Chocolove says it's to become the greatest comedian, which everyone gets pissed off about. So, some little bit of camaraderie that we don't really get to see for the manga and newer anime, where Chocolove talks about the wind of laughter that he wants to have flow all over the world. Meanwhile, in the manga and newer anime, we're introduced to the commentator for the Shaman fight Radim, and we get to know the rules of the tournament and how everything works basically. The rules being, it's a 3-on-3 battle with no time limit, spirits are allowed, if anyone loses their oversouls, if they leave the fighting arena outside of the totem pole, or if the team decides not to fight anymore, that ends the match for the most part. There's also this electro barrier around the arena to keep people from interfering, and Radha makes this joke about people throwing stuff at him, but that only really happens in the manga. In the newer anime, he just makes the offhand comment with nobody really doing anything like that. So it's just kind of like, why did he comment on people throwing stuff at him? And was delighted by all of this. We also see how easily Anna can summon the Shinigami, and so the first match is one that'll go on between Team The Ren, the whole crew rolling up like badasses, and Anna's still trying to drive home to that, they'll end up fighting Ren one way or the other. But we also have Anna and Ren coming to the conclusion that teams Earth, Flower, Moon, and Stars seem to all go together, and they're probably all minions of How. Chocolove is getting a little nervous, Horo Horo is all hot-blooded and pumped up, again very ironic for someone like him. And then we're introduced to Team Earth, which is Peyote and the boys, which barely remembers. Meanwhile, in the older anime, the boys, well, whatever they're called in the older anime, just kind of show up like Team Rocket villains. And Chocolove already knows exactly who they are and their capabilities. Whereas in the manga and the newer anime, Chocolove actually kind of freaks out a little bit because he's just like, oh no, they're minions of How, we're in trouble, this isn't good. And Chocolove doesn't know how weak they actually are, to the point where Ren sicks Chocolove on them, and he says he'll take on Peyote, their leader. And whereas the bulls try to talk a good game saying, well, do you know who our leader is? Are you talking down to us? And the match is ready to get started. Meanwhile, in the older anime, the boys are just like, yeah, we've grown and evolved. And then it's Ren who actually takes on the boys, instead of it being solely Chocolove. Meanwhile, in the manga and newer anime, Godiva announces the start of the shaman fight and gives a short and very concise speech. And thus the match begins. And so in both versions, the boys go in, but with the manga and older and newer anime, they use their Chimi Chimi Morio attack on Chocolove, and it seems like an overwhelming victory at first, and Chocolove is completely unscathed. And then in both versions, they unleash their ultimate attack, Chimi Chimi Morio Remix, and it's literally just the same song. And in both versions, they're easily taken out. One by Ren, the other by Chocolove. I love that Mick is just eating the Chibi Chibi Morio. In the older anime, though, our heroes start to know that something is kind of up, as they just keep attacking over and over again. And they realize something's kind of off with the tenacity of the boys. And Yo's the one who thinks, oh no, if we keep attacking, they'll eventually end up dying. But Ren knows something's kind of off when they unleash this weird new oversoul, this cactus blast. And Ren's even ready to actually just off them then and there, because he just doesn't want to lose. Meanwhile, Chocolove is ready to step in and take on the situation. And thus, in all versions, Chocolove's ready to show everybody what he can do. He talks about the technique that he got from an old man in New York, the power of the Black Jaguar. Although I love the speech that he gives in the manga and newer anime. O descendant of the jaguar, your nose finds all, your eyes see all, your legs catch all, your claws rend all. You are the strongest beast on the continent. Once you hear the Jaguar's call, the Jaguar Soul will be yours. And the older anime tries to go a bit more into his backstory, and Chocolove notices that there's something up. So in both versions, he uses his speed against them, taking on their Chimichimimorio very easily, just zooming between all of them, getting around the boys, and uses his power of shaft. He gives them the shaft and strikes all of them down. Whereas in the older anime, he uses his speed and claws in his nose in order to suss out peyote. And Chocolove knows who he is and that he's a minion of Hao. Meanwhile, in the manga and newer anime, everyone's impressed by Chocolove's speed and power, and it looks like the bulls are completely taken out. And even Yo's kind of impressed by his abilities. And Anna even analyzes that the way he uses his Oversoul is next level. That he imbues his guardian spirit within to his nails, his eyes, and that's what he uses as his medium mostly, as well as the claws, of course. It's some really advanced stuff. I love the amount of praise that Chocolove gets for all of this. And even Horo's just like, yeah, Chocolove's pretty good. It's something that even Ren was impressed by. And even Hao's kind of delighted by all of this, seeing the boys beat up, and it's shown that this is the only reason they were brought in, just so they could be entertainment for Hao. Something interesting of note, is the fact that in the manga, Hao's team are all in like civilian clothes for the most part, but in the anime they're just kept in their, battle attire for the most part, which kind of makes sense. Why have them change their clothes so much? But Hao's just using this as entertainment, whether Peyote wins or loses. He doesn't really care, but he finds it'll be more entertaining if Peyote wins, as Peyote kicks the boys awake, telling them get up, but the boys are kind of at their limit for the most part, and Chocolove's just like, yeah, no, don't take my shaft lightly. But Peyote notes, like, aren't they your enemies? Why not kill them? As the boys go back in on the attack, and Chocolove takes them down again. And then the boys get right back on up. And then Peyote tells them if he wants to win, it might have to kill them. And in all versions, Ren realizes that Peyote is actually using the boys as his medium, that he's infused his Oversoul into them. And that's the conclusion. Honestly, in all versions, it more or less plays out the same, as Anna in all versions make the decision that Faust will come and help out Yo. Chocolove is given an opportunity to show off what he can do, what he's made of. The showdown with the boys and Peyote, it all kind of plays out the same. It's just the circumstances are all kind of different. While in the manga and newer anime, the shaman fight is underway. We're in the main event of the series, whereas the older anime, we're still trying to get to the Patch Village. The first fight hasn't taken place yet. They've only just formed team at the furthest we've gotten with the older anime. So it's kind of a matter of your perspective. Would you prefer them to have just gotten to the Patch Village, have the shaman fights underway, not kind of beat around the bush with that? Or do you feel that them spending time taking on the various minions of Hao before they get to the Patch Village makes more sense to you? From my personal standpoint, I just want them to get to the shaman fight and actually see the various teams progress, because it's a shonen series. You want to get to that tournament arc, and just the one time Hao having his minions interfere with Yo and his gang is good enough for me. But honestly, the whole shaman fight, traveling across America kind of situation, is also a good situation for kind of weeding through various different characters. The downside is that a lot of the fights that are supposed to take place for the shaman fight end up getting replaced with basically filler. These no-name characters who we don't really encounter too much, but the older anime uses that as character growth mode. But at the same time, by proxy, you get a few more fights out of our heroes. So let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. Which version do you prefer the most? Which did the better job? Which has the better depiction of our heroes? All that good stuff. And if you'd like this video, please like, comment, subscribe, and hit the bell icon for notifications. And until next time, I've been Duuz-Diz-Din. This has been What's the Difference? And I will see you guys later. Bye-bye.